Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. Happy Friday, everybody. I hope you've had a great week and have got some nice things planned ahead of you for the weekend. Today, we're going to be diving into our daily cryptocurrency market update. And yesterday was a weird day. We had the CPI, the Consumer Price Index for the US, come out, which essentially is the figures that they use to monitor inflation. And they came out a lot higher than they were previously last month, certainly in as far as percentage gains go for the inflationary stats. They came out at 7.5%. And on the back end of this, we actually saw the dollar gain strength and the likes of Bitcoin, gold, silver, a number of commodities actually sell to the downside, and also equities, which doesn't really make a lot of sense. It's another reminder of just how speculative all markets are. We're going to be getting into that in this video, because why might that be the case? Why, when we know the dollar essentially is inflating by 7.5% year on year, or certainly in the prior year, would we see it gain strength? Now, this has a lot to do with what I think the Fed Reserve potentially may be planning to do to tackle inflation. They've threatened to up interest rates in March, once they kind of stop and have tapered off the bond purchasing and so on and so forth, and the stimulating going out into the economy. But I think they're over-emphasizing what they can really do here. And I think this is scaring markets. And I had a huge decision to make. I've got quite a bit of money in crypto. I am all in crypto. And I had to make a huge decision when a lot of other people were coming out saying they sold, saying that they, didn't want to hold through this market anymore, that they wanted to be defensive. Do I hang on to the money that I've got within the crypto space and leave it in there, or do I take it out and mitigate risk? And it's a huge bet that I'm taking, that I ultimately believe that crypto will go higher. I don't think we're entering a bear market or a prolonged bear market. I don't really think they even are going to exist anymore, where we see these kind of, rinse and repeat 4-year cycles. I think this potentially was the last cycle. It's also Willy Woo's kind of understanding. But ultimately, I do think Bitcoin is going to recover. And I think right now we're just experiencing a little bit of turbulence, which is a part of any journey that you take, in my opinion. Certainly a journey that's as early on as crypto and Bitcoin is. And we're also going to talk about that a little bit within this video. This, for me, is still the most important chart. Let me move my big head out of the way slightly. This is a chart that shows short-term hodlers. And historically, when your short-term hodlers are at all-time highs at an extremely high level, that's usually been the top, and vice versa when the short-term hodlers are not so fluent within the market. That's usually been a good bottoming indicator, and that's certainly been historic. And this is one of the most important charts that I keep my eye on, because it's a reminder of where potentially we could be. We've also looked at a number of things, like we've compared Bitcoin with Amazon in 2010, which was at a very similar point, with very similar, or in a very similar environment, in the sense that the Fed were thinking about upping interest rates. Countries around the world were in wake of the stimulus that they had to put into the economy after 2008, the housing financial crisis. And then they had to, inflation was running very hot back then as well. So it's similar environment. So I ultimately believe that Bitcoin is going to continue going up, and we're going to be looking at a number of things. We're going to be reminding you of this. We covered this in great detail previously. This is the adoption of the internet. And of course, in the dotted line, you've got crypto users. So you've got the internet users and you've got crypto users. This is the journey that we're on. And I actually think this is going to be steeper in regards to adoption and more users being onboarded than the likes of the internet. This technology is not going to take as long to adopt as something like the internet, or even prior to that, the PC sort of revolution. This is a tweet from Andreas Antonopoulos, who is a Bitcoin maxi, I believe. I know he's also wrote a book on Ethereum. I'm not a Bitcoin maxi. I am of a different school of thinking. I believe that, technology evolves. Bitcoin was the first. It has some trade-offs that are better than others in comparison with a basket of other cryptocurrencies. But ultimately, I'm far more bullish on some of these smart contract protocols or smart contract blockchains, because I think the scope of reach for them is far greater, and that comes with more adoption and potentially more value in the long run. But Bitcoin, of course, is really capturing that store of value market, and I see it as a store of value. It's certainly proved itself as that today, which is why the CPI coming out and seeing the dollar strength didn't really make a lot of sense. Just another stark reminder that markets are not only manipulated, but very heavily speculative, and often are uncorrelated to the asset that they're actually trying to price, if that makes sense. So this is from Andreas. People are beginning to notice Bitcoin is more than what they were told. And what are they told? It's for drug dealers, pornographers, criminals. Guess what? That is exactly what they said about the internet. They were wrong then and they're wrong now. And I happen to agree with them on this. People still look at crypto with a degree of skepticism. That's what the masses are doing. Well, we know the likes of BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world, $10 trillion under management, are moving to facilitate cryptocurrency services, along with a basket of other big companies out there. Up and coming Apple iPhone feature to give merchants a way to accept crypto payments. Bitcoin 30% recovery in 2 weeks has Bitcoin whales back in accumulation mode. And you can see that here. So we've been going over a lot of on-chain data, like this one that the Root had pointed out in regards to short-term hodlers. Lots of other on-chain data surrounding a number of other things, whether that be whales, whatever it may be, all pointing to this market moving in the right direction. And the price hasn't correlated with a lot of that on-chain metrics. However, I think it will. I think value sometimes takes a little bit of time to get realized. I think there's lots of turbulence within the market, within markets throughout. I mean, we're looking at the tech stocks right now. We're looking at gold yesterday, which sold off in wake of the CPI. So it's all very, it's a very uncertain time. This is why it really helps to be grounded in your beliefs of, what do you think is being achieved here? Do you think that this technology is going to, see similar adoption to the internet? Do you think it's going to play a role within the future that I certainly am anticipating? Or do you not? Do you think it's a technology that fades and it's just a fad? I think it's proven that it's not that, and that it's a lot more than that, and that it's going to capture a lot of value moving forward. And that's the bet that I'm personally taking. Like I say, I've had to ask myself a number of, serious questions. Look myself in the mirror, if you will, to my horror, and essentially say, look, do I want to stay in this market during these time periods, or do I want to take? It's a lot harder hodling a larger sum of money than it is a smaller. I can guarantee that, and I can guarantee you guys will find that as your portfolios grow. But ultimately, I'm still personally confident, and this is not financial advice, that it's a bright future that the cryptocurrency market is moving towards. And I think we're seeing that. I mean, the Russia news, how crypto didn't pump on the back of that is beyond me. Russia coming out and saying that they're going to regulate it and allow it. I mean, that's huge, guys. It's just waiting for the US now to kind of follow suit. I think they will. I actually think the US will regulate crypto, not ban it, even though it is a huge threat to their, or I certainly believe it's a huge threat to their rights as the world reserve currency. But I think they're going to benefit more from it, from regulating it and maybe constricting it in certain ways, than outright banning it and really showing their cards on that front. So it's certainly an interesting time. Market's very lackluster today, very indecisive. I mean, you can see that. You've only got to look at some of these wicks. I mean, the actual, which I was watching, I was at the gym at the time, so I took quite a rest between sets when I kind of saw this. We'll go to a 1 hour chart to highlight it. Should we do 30 minutes? We'll do 30 minutes. Hello. That was what we were looking at. CPI came out. Boom. Boom. Back up. And then it's kind of, the earthquake's kind of set in, if you will. And we're now potentially recovering from that. But one thing that Bitcoin hasn't done since its recovery here is put in a new low, which I like, which is essentially, in the short term, an upward trending market. But when you flip it to, of course, you're still downtrending technically, because you haven't, yes, you put it in a higher high, but you've not necessarily put in, it's too early. You can't just base it off of one higher high and one higher, or one higher low and one higher high. You've got to really see this structure continue, and not only that, hold it. And I do actually think I wouldn't be that bothered at all if Bitcoin kind of came back down to these levels where we've seen a lot of points of contact. We've seen strength, we've seen weakness, but if Bitcoin came back down, having made this kind of run back to some of these levels, which we've got close to, wouldn't bother me in the slightest. I actually think that would be quite a healthy structure to see before we get that continuation. Of course, altcoins are just following. And when this market is allowed to flourish, we still know that Bitcoin is that tide that rises and sinks all ships. A lot of your altcoins are going to outperform. That's why I'm more heavy in altcoins, and I have no shame in saying it, than I am Bitcoin, because I think altcoins massively outperform Bitcoin. Certainly the likes of Cardano, Ethereum, and so on, when the market is allowed to flourish. And that's really dependent on Bitcoin and the kind of wider global economic, geopolitical landscape, you know, because we're also tethered into it. But I think Bitcoin's very much at a similar point to what Amazon was. Pull that up for you. In 2010, do I want to use this chart? Yeah, we'll use this chart. Why not? I'll put it on a 3-day. That might help. It's not really helped massively. So you can see here. Okay, we've already drawn all over this. So this was your just watch my cursor, 2008 moment. A kindred to 2020. Huge event that took place, Black Swan event. The governments around the world needed to bail banks out and stimulate, essentially, and deflate and inflate the money system, which caused assets to rise. Then you have a cooling off of that. 2010, they come in and they start threatening to up interest rates, which is why you had this period over here. Everyone was calling for continuation to the downside. But ultimately, we know the story of Amazon and how it played out, ladies and gents. And I think Bitcoin's on a similar trajectory. So I have waffled on for, very quickly, let's take a look at how the likes of Amazon are doing. Huge sell-off for Amazon, continuation. So yeah, so I'm going to love and leave you on that note. We're yet to see what the Fed do. It's going to be very interesting. Are they really going to up interest rates? They're talking about 50 bips. I reckon maybe 25 bips potentially. You know, they can't do anything significant, in my opinion. They can't start throwing out percentage, as in like 1% ups, interest rate hikes here and there. I think it's going to be percentages of 1%. So it could be 25%, it could be 10%. You know, and I think maybe max we potentially get a 1%, maximum 1.5% interest rate hike this year. They can't really do it much more than that. Certainly when they owe that much debt, certainly when there's a load of emerging nations that are dependent and will get crushed in the wake of that, certainly when their own economy is seeming to slow down at a time of high inflation. You've also got a lot of people that are overly debt. I mean, the whole system is completely overly leveraged and debted. I agree with Michael Burry on many respects. I don't think he got the Bitcoin call right, or certainly not yet. That could come later down the line. He could be proven to be right at a far higher point. I think maybe potentially. It's very interesting time, guys. But I ultimately don't think that, you know, I think they'd cripple their own economy if the Fed have to choose between recession and inflation, and I think they're going to choose higher levels of inflation than they are a recession. Certainly whilst Biden's in power, but we don't want to get too political with everything. So we'll see what transpires. Really looking forward to March, actually, believe it or not, so that I can get some clarity on what the Fed are or are not doing. And that's really all I have for you guys. So I'm going to love and leave you on that note. I hope you found this useful, entertaining, and informative. If you have a like, I always appreciate it. So as a comment. And I look forward to seeing you all in the next YouTube video. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Enjoy your Friday, and I'll catch you in the next YouTube video.